The unexpected inheritance of his grandfather's sprawling 200-acre ranch on the outskirts of Pinewood Valley was a life-altering shock for Daniel, a city-dwelling computer programmer. Little did he know this pastoral legacy would thrust him into an audacious land battle against a wealthy, overreaching homeowners association. The will reading itself was dramatic, with disappointed cousins storming out as Daniel, stunned, contemplated his new, unfamiliar role as a ranch owner. 2 weeks later, Daniel drove out to Pinewood Valley, a place he hadn't visited since childhood. The main ranch house, though in need of repair, stood on breathtakingly beautiful land, rolling hills, a meandering stream, and ancient oak trees that whispered tales of generations past. But as he walked the southern property line, a jarring sight broke the idyllic scene. A row of 5 luxurious modern homes, seemingly built right up against what should have been his fence. Consulting his grandfather's meticulously kept property maps and official county records, a startling truth emerged. Approximately 1 acre of his inherited land had somehow been absorbed into the adjacent Pine Lake Estates, a posh gated community governed by a notoriously aggressive HOA. Determined to understand this encroachment, Daniel delved into county records. He unearthed a damning discovery. A decade prior, while his grandfather was in his 80s and rarely visited the ranch, the Pine Lake Estates HOA had quietly and illegally shifted their fence line onto his family's property. They had then proceeded to construct 5 high-end homes, partially on land that was never theirs to begin with. Armed with irrefutable evidence, Daniel scheduled a meeting with the HOA board. He entered their polished clubhouse conference room to find Karen Palmer, the HOA president, and 5 other board members, exuding an air of country club entitlement. When Daniel calmly presented his findings, surveys and county records proving the encroachment, Karen's welcoming smile vanished. "That's impossible," she declared. "Those property lines were established years ago." Daniel methodically laid out his maps. "The official records show that approximately 1 acre of my property was incorporated into Pine Lake Estates without permission. 5 of your homes are partially built on my land." A tense silence filled the room until Bob Matthews, a red-faced board member, blustered, "Look, son, I don't know what you think you're doing, but Pine Lake Estates is a respectable community. We don't appreciate false accusations." Daniel remained composed. "This isn't an accusation. It's a fact, supported by official documentation. I'd like to discuss how we resolve this." Karen Palmer, however, was not interested in resolution. "There's nothing to resolve," she snapped. "Those homeowners have deeds to their properties. Deeds to land that belonged to my grandfather and now belongs to me," Daniel countered firmly. Karen leaned forward, her voice a low threat. "Mr. Wilson, we can make this very difficult for you. Our HOA has excellent lawyers. If you push this, we'll tie you up in court for years." Then, her tone softened into a condescending offer. "Or we could offer you $25,000 to settle this quietly and make it all go away." A smirk played on her lips. "A young man like you, just starting out, probably needs the cash." Daniel nearly laughed in her face. The encroached land alone was worth 10 times that, not even considering the value of the illegally constructed portions of the luxury homes. "Take it or leave it," Karen said, her arrogance palpable. Daniel stood, his decision made. "I'll be in touch." The HOA's response was swift and audacious. The next day, Daniel received a certified letter demanding he pay them $250,000 for unauthorized access to Pine Lake Estates and harassment of board members. They were building on his land and were now trying to extort money from him. The sheer nerve was astounding. Instead of immediately hiring a lawyer and bracing for a protracted legal battle, Daniel decided on a more direct and ultimately more satisfying approach. His programming mind kicked into research mode. First, he made a critical discovery. Pine Lake Estate's entire water system, the lifeblood of their manicured lawns and sparkling pools, relied on a deep water well. A well that, according to precise geographical surveys, was located squarely on his property. The HOA had been illegally pumping water from his land for years, unbeknownst to his aging grandfather. His second discovery was equally potent. The only access road leading to the back 5 houses, the very homes partially built on his land, crossed a small but crucial corner of his ranch. His grandfather, a man of handshake agreements, had verbally allowed this access, but crucially, nothing was ever put in writing, no formal easement ever recorded. Armed with this powerful leverage, Daniel acted. He hired surveyors to place new, highly visible markers delineating the correct, legally recorded property line. Then, with a quiet determination, he constructed a sturdy new fence precisely along that line. This new fence bisected the backyards of those 5 luxury homes, dramatically altering their landscapes. It cut off access to their swimming pools, meticulously landscaped gardens, and in one unfortunate case, an entire 3-car garage. The reaction from the affected homeowners was immediate and explosive. They were apoplectic, unable to comprehend how someone could deface their beautiful, expensive properties in such a manner. The HOA, led by a furious Karen Palmer, immediately called the police. However, when the responding officers reviewed Daniel's official surveys and county records, they correctly determined it was a civil matter, not a criminal one, and that Daniel was within his rights to secure his own property. The next day, Karen Palmer, flanked by 2 stern-faced men in expensive suits who introduced themselves as HOA legal counsel, appeared at Daniel's door. "You need to take down that fence immediately," she demanded, her voice tight with fury. Daniel, leaning calmly against his doorframe, replied, "I'm simply securing my legally established property line." "We'll sue you for everything you have," threatened one of the lawyers, his face contorted in a snarl. Daniel allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "Before you embark on that particular course of action," he said, his voice even and steady, "you should probably be aware of a few recent developments. Firstly, I've already filed official papers with the County Water Authority regarding the illegal well your association has been operating on my land for the past decade. Secondly, tomorrow morning, I will be installing a gate and blocking the access road that crosses my property, which means, of course, that those 5 luxury homes, the ones partially built on my land, will no longer have a vehicular way in or out." Karen Palmer's face, previously flushed with anger, went deathly pale. The lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. You can't do that," she stammered, her bravado evaporating. "Oh, I can," Daniel assured her, "and I absolutely will. Unless, of course, we can reach a mutually agreeable and eminently fair resolution to all outstanding issues." 2 days later, a very different kind of meeting took place. Daniel sat across the table from the full HOA board and the 5 deeply concerned, and now far more respectful, homeowners whose properties were directly impacted. The arrogant posturing was gone, replaced by a palpable anxiety. This time, they were ready to negotiate in good faith. A comprehensive agreement was reached. The Pine Lake Estates HOA would pay Daniel the fair market value for the 1 acre of land they had illegally encroached upon and built on, a sum determined by independent appraisers to be $500,000. They would also pay 10 years of back fees for the unauthorized usage of the water well on his property, amounting to an additional $150,000. In exchange, Daniel would grant them proper, legally recorded easements for both the access road and the water well, subject to reasonable annual usage fees moving forward. But the sweetest part of the victory for Daniel was the public downfall of Karen Palmer. During the intense negotiations, it came to light that she had been aware of the property line discrepancies and the illegal well for several years, but had deliberately concealed this information from both the board and the affected homeowners, presumably to avoid personal accountability and maintain the HOA's pristine image. Faced with this revelation and the fury of her constituents, Karen Palmer was forced to resign from the HOA board in disgrace. 1 month later, Daniel received a check for $650,000. He used a significant portion of the funds to lovingly renovate his grandfather's old ranch house, transforming it into a comfortable and modern home where he now lives full-time. He abandoned his city programming career, embracing the rural life he never knew he wanted, and started a small, successful organic farm on the fertile ranch land. Sometimes, as he rides his horse along the newly re-established property line, he waves to his neighbors in Pine Lake Estates. Most of them, he discovered, are actually decent people who were simply misled by a power-hungry and deceitful HOA board. The new HOA president, a far more reasonable individual, even invited Daniel to their summer barbecue last weekend. Daniel attended, bringing a homemade apple pie, made with fruit grown on his own land, using his grandfather's cherished recipe. As he shared pie and conversation with his new neighbors, Daniel reflected on how his grandfather might have handled the audacious land grab. He concluded that the old man, a man of quiet strength and unwavering principles, would likely have done exactly what he did: stand up unflinchingly for what is rightfully yours, but always be fair and just in the final reckoning. Justice, Daniel realized, doesn't always emerge from the hallowed halls of courtrooms or the expensive briefcases of lawyers. Sometimes, it simply takes one individual, armed with the truth and an unshakable will, willing to stand their ground, especially when that ground has been a cherished part of their family for generations. The legacy of the Wilson Ranch was secure, not just in acreage, but in spirit.